Hello, it's ShadeX, and I love Infinity Train. It is a show that piqued my interest ever since the pilot was posted online. At first, I figured the show would focus on one protagonist, that being Tulip, a teenage girl who finds herself on a train with an unending amount of cars. But to my surprise, it turned out to be an anthology show. I've covered Infinity Train multiple times on my channel. First, I did a video on my first impressions on the show, and then I did a video speculating what would happen in future seasons. My two most recent videos on the show are a review of the first 3 seasons, and I followed that up with a video where I voiced my disappointment with the show being cancelled. That video was edited by my friend Manuel, who was surprised about how angry I got. I definitely regret how I acted in that video, as that is not the way someone who wants a show to come back should act. So for this video, I'll be respectful. It is important to acknowledge that people need to be respectful to get what they want. I understand some people's anger for this show's premature end, but rather than let that continue, I think it's best to take action and bring more attention to the show. Infinity Train Book 4 is the final season at the moment, so I figured that I'd review it. What I find most interesting about this season is how big of a curveball Owen Dennis and the Infinity Train crew threw for the 4th season. Books 1 through 3 were all connected in some form, with different characters from previous seasons popping up as the main protagonists in the following season. For example, Tulip's former reflection was the main protagonist of Book 2, and Grace and Simon, the leaders of a cult called the Apex, who appeared in an episode of Book 2, ended up becoming the 2 main leads of Book 3. However, Book 4 is interesting because it features 2 characters the audience hasn't seen before, those 2 being Ryan and Mingi. Not only that, but this season takes place in the 80s, making Book 4 a prequel. So, how is Book 4? It is really fun. I completely understand why Book 4 isn't as lore heavy as Books 1 through 3, because all the world building had already been done by that point. Book 1 revealed that 1-1 was the conductor. Book 2 revealed that the train is way more technologically complex than it initially appears. And Book 3 revealed what ends up happening when people's numbers get too high. They die. The first episode of Book 4 is interesting because it features the memory tapes of the 2 lead characters being extracted. We learn in this book that Ryan and Mingi are 2 friends who've known each other since childhood. However, once they get older, they drift apart. Ryan is passionate about starting a band with Mingi, and they are ready to play a song for a Battle of the Bands competition. However, Mingi gets stressed after Ryan tells him that they'll be hitting the road to play music together as their band Chicken Choice Judy. Mingi at the start doesn't want to tour with Ryan because he is told about it too suddenly. He abandons Ryan when they are about to play. The 2 live very different lives afterwards. Mingi works at a Humpty Dumpty themed restaurant and has plans to go to a university, while Ryan plays solo shows and breaks up with numerous women. The 2 then meet again, and Ryan tells Mingi that he bought him a ticket to play a show in New York City. However, Mingi says that he has his own plans to study finance in college and is bothered by the fact that Ryan is thinking about his own future rather than his. Ryan then runs away with Mingi's keys, and he chases him in an attempt to get them back. He follows him into a train, and they end up on the Infinity Train. What follows is a cool scene with 1-1 and Amelia talking, which proves that Book 4 is indeed a prequel. Amelia believes that the fact Ryan and Mingi got the same number is for a destiny reason, which she finds stupid. However, 1-1 disputes this by saying that anything can happen on the train according to his mathematical algorithms. When Amelia hears that anything can happen on the train, it is clear that this is foreshadowing her inevitable hijack of the train, which came to an end in Book 1 after Tulip defeated her. Besides that cool cameo, another thing I love about this scene is that it reiterates to the audience the information that they've learned from the first 3 books. The purpose of this train is to help people fix their problems, and if they can't, they will die. In Book 1, Tulip gets over her problems and gets her exit. In Book 2, we see how the train really works. Lake discovers how people are given their numbers. In Book 3, we see Simon, a passenger on the train, die because he can't sort out his problems. I really love how the previous 3 books gave an explanation about how the train operated by showing and not telling. The spoken explanation 1-1 gives Amelia lines up perfectly with all the stuff the audience has seen before. This is great payoff. So, how is Book 4 after the first episode? Really fun! This is definitely a lighter season than Book 3, and this is the way Owen Dennis and the writing team wanted it to be. Book 3 was really dark, and it drained the crew, and I totally get why. It was a very intense season, and the ending was pure nightmare fuel. While I wanted a lore-heavy season, Book 4 is a return to the fun adventure seasons that were Books 1 through 2, and honestly, I am fine with that. I really want to talk about it, but rather than summarize the rest of this season, I think it'd be better to talk about everything in Book 4 that really stands out to me. Those things being the adventure the two main male leads go through, the funny characters, the emotional moments, and the few crumbs of world building that this season introduces. Starting things off, I'll talk about the adventure aspect of this season. This season focuses on Ryan and Mingi's friendship. Throughout this season, they have trouble getting along. At the start, Ryan is very immature and Mingi seems reasonable. However, both friends have their own problems, hence why they are both on the train and have the same number. On the train, they meet Kez, a talking bell, who has a ton of enemies who despise her. Ryan and Mingi meet these enemies of hers while traveling from train car to train car. This season has a ton of goofy characters like some aliens who planned on going on a ski trip, some Wild West bugs, but the funniest character of the entire season in my opinion is Pig Baby. He's voiced by J.K. Simmons, aka J. Jonah Jameson, aka Omni-Man from Invincible, aka Ford from Gravity Falls. The dude's done a lot of stuff. What I find funny about Pig Baby is that he is giant, he has a man's voice, and that he has a cow creamer for a mother. I really love absurdist humor in cartoons, and the Pig Baby episode is definitely a great example of that. This season has a lot of interesting cars. There's the Astro Q car, which...
Hey, isn't that Among Us?
Oh, we're not making that joke. The Astro Q car is an interesting concept. There is a long line for the party car and there are portals. Anyway, it's revealed that the people in the line are dead. As far as emotional moments go, I really like the character development that Ryan and Mingi go through. There is a theme in this season that is very clear. Ryan at the start is very codependent on Mingi to an unhealthy level. He believes that Mingi will drop everything he is doing in favor of going to New York to play a concert with him. Ryan is in the wrong for that, but at the same time, Mingi is also in the wrong. At the start, Mingi abandons Ryan when he's about to play a show. This happens again in the episode The Party Car. In that episode, Kez tells her friends that they'll be playing a show for them. Ryan and Mingi end up in the green room and they're about to play a show as Chicken Choice Judy. However, Mingi is a no-show on stage again. Mingi is clearly in the wrong for not being there for Ryan. The reason he doesn't perform is because he's stressed out and believes he'll be stuck on the train forever. Not only that, but he's worried because he doesn't think people will be accepting of him and Ryan's band because of them both being Asian and from Canada. However, Ryan mentions YMO to reassure Mingi, which is an Asian band from the 70s. I just want to mention that I am glad there is Asian representation in this season. Despite not performing in the party car for an audience, the two still have fun playing music together in the bathroom. They end up playing an early version of Train to Nowhere, which they sing at the end of the final episode. Anyway, their music opens the door. One of the most interesting episodes of Book 4 is the art car. It features a monster made out of passengers' hands called the Docent. He is creepy, lives in the art car, and has the power to make people feel sad. Anyway, the importance of this episode is that Ryan leaves the car through the door, which is a piece of mobile art, and gets his exit after he mentions he'll never leave Mingi's side. However, Ryan does not take the exit because he wants to save his friend. This is a very intense moment. It's scary and emotional. Mingi ends up believing that he was abandoned by Ryan, which makes him angry. I really love this moment because it shows that Mingi is codependent on Ryan as well, while on the train. The final episodes are great. The maze episode is very intense. I love how all of Kez's enemies team up, and I found it hilarious that Pig Baby grew up into a pig toddler. They get chased by these enemies, but Ryan and Minji end up in the castle. The two meet Kez's roommate Morgan, who initially they thought was a man. However, it turns out she's a talking castle. The man in the photo is Jeremy, who was a really good friend of Morgan. He lived in the castle for 5 years, which scares Ryan and Minji, who believe they'll be trapped on the train. Morgan blames Kez for Jeremy's disappearance and decides to keep the two friends in the castle as a replacement. It turns out Jeremy ended up on the train because his whole family died in a car accident and he blamed himself for it. However, Kez convinced him it wasn't his fault and he got his exit. This is a great reveal. I really love how this show isn't afraid to touch sensitive subjects like death. It's a shame Cartoon Network Studios seems to believe that kids can't handle these subjects, which I'll get into later when I talk about the plans Owen Dennis had for future books. The season has a great ending. Mingi learns not to worry about his future and trust Ryan. He realizes he doesn't like finance and decides to give up his job at Dumpty's because it made him miserable. I really like that the toxic codependent friendship becomes a healthy one by the end of the season. Both Ryan and Mingi have come to the conclusion that they both have the same desire to tour together as a band. Really like the relationship the two have in this season. I know a lot of people expected gay representation. While it would have been nice to see that in a show like this that is marketed to kids, I am fine with the relationship as it is depicted. I am fine with a platonic relationship between two men being depicted in this show. I love seeing the two bond throughout the season and learn to trust each other by the end of it. Kez has great character development as well, as she apologizes to everyone she's wronged. At first they don't accept the apology, but they eventually do. She apologizes to Morgan for not telling her why Jeremy left. Morgan, while not ready to accept Kez's apology for now, isn't as angry. Ryan then realizes he wasn't just rushing Mingi, but he was rushing himself as well. He comes to the realization that starting a band takes time, and that he was thinking about the future him and Mingi would have too quickly. The two then get their exits, but before Ryan and Mingi leave, we get this funny moment. The season ends with the two friends in New York City performing a song as Chicken Choice Judy titled Train to Nowhere. If Infinity Train gets future seasons, I hope at least one of them references this band. Finally, as far as lore from this season goes, there are some interesting additions. Besides Amelia at the start, there are some other interesting new developments. That addition being the train outfits. This isn't their first appearance as a show, as Amelia wears one in book 3. Also, Simon wears gravity boots, which are an additional part of the outfit. It's pretty clear that prior to book 1, passengers had limited freedom on the train. These outfits are impossible to take off and are all that Ryan and Mingi have at the start. Later in the season, however, 1-1 meets up with the two friends and makes a train-wide announcement mentioning how they can have their stuff back. They then get it in a crate. The reveal is interesting because all the prior seasons had passengers on the train in their own clothes. They even had their own items that they brought on the train with them. It is clear that Amelia manipulated 1-1 into doing this. By the end of the season, Amelia has taken over the train and she mentions that Ryan and Mingi are on their own now. She then removes their gravity boots. It's very clear that she has full control of the train now, but she recently took it over. So Infinity Train is cancelled for the moment, and it really is a shame. Owen Dennis had a ton of great ideas for future books, and even a Christmas special. Book 5 would have been a movie focused entirely on Amelia's rise to power. Some storyboards from it even leaked from the Infinity Train yearbook. I am interested in this story. However, Cartoon Network for some reason felt that kids could not relate to an adult woman grieving the death of her fiancé. But here's the thing, kids need a show like that. This show isn't afraid to cover sensitive topics, and that's what makes this show work. The final season would have been really interesting. I really hope one day audience get to see it. Book 8, the end of the series, would have focused on the lead characters suffering from Alzheimer's and would have shown both the elderly person and their loved one's perspective. I am going to guess that Book 8 would focus on Amelia losing her memory and Hazel having to deal with this. What is important about this proposed season is that it was based loosely on an autobiography by Owen Dennis's grandfather who was dealing with Alzheimer's at the time. Topics like the loss of a partner and Alzheimer's are important things that kids need to learn about. I really hope Infinity Train comes back. It's such a compelling show, and Book 4 shouldn't be the end. Sure, if the show never comes back, at least books 1 through 3 ended on a decent note, but there is so much more story to tell. I really hope HBO Max renews it, as it's trending in the US. It out-trended Game of Thrones, one of HBO's most popular shows, which proves that Infinity Train is really clicking with audiences. All Infinity Train needs is one big renewal. This show trends on Twitter numerous times. Cartoon Network Studios really should make more of this show. The problem is that international audience cannot watch it. Thankfully, however, HBO Max is getting added in other countries soon. Owen Dennis recommends that people watch it legally internationally when they are able to, if they want the show to come back. Also, Owen is trying to get a license to make Infinity Train merch, so if official merch comes out, all of you should support. Like he mentioned, brands like money and merch sales would definitely convince Cartoon Network to renew the show. I hope Infinity Train comes back. This show needs a proper conclusion. Books 1 through 4 were just the beginning. We need a proper end. This has been Shade X, and I hope you all feel nothing but good vibes.